It's time for the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Ether,
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Discord, and Reddit. Links in the description. This week's episode, The Jersey Devil.
So I found out the Jersey Devil was also known by several other names.
Yes, it was.
The hell spawn of Mama Leeds.
Yeah, especially that one. But I was trying to figure out where some of these names came from. And I'm guessing that each one has its different roots, like Jabberwock. Isn't that like the Jabberwocky from
the Jabberwocky's
Star
like
Wars?
No, it's like an English thing.
Yeah.
I think.
Wasn't there like a character in Star Wars named like a Jabberwocky or something like that?
No, wait, it was what was it? It was the
I know the end sounds like a Wookiee a little bit, but I don't think that's what I'm thinking of.
No, I know what you're talking about, like the Sand People or something, right?
Yeah, those are the ones, yeah. Yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I forget what it's, I mean, it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's been so long since I saw that movie.
It was also called a Wazzlebug.
Wazzlebug?
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know where this came from. I was looking for it. And, newspapers referred to it by different names, and eventually the Jersey Devil would be the one that stuck. But it was also described just in general as the Flying Devil, and then for some idea, an Australian waif.
Huh, very interesting. I just had a spark of inspiration. I think the show Cryptid there in the room that I can hear with you. Maybe we should call them, what was the name? Wazzlebuffs or Wazzlebuff?
Wazzlebug.
Wazzlebug. They sound like Wazzlebugs to me. That might be a good nickname for them. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Why
just
not?
A nickname is all, not their real name. Yeah, a bunch of Wazzlebugs over there making noise.
And I just wanted to
hear their hoofs.
I just want to throw out there that this topic was requested by the Conjugator 2.0 on Discord. So we have a list of topics a mile long. There really is no end in sight. People sometimes ask me, well, won't you ever run out of topics? Like, no, there are so many sightings and weird, it never ends. So if anybody requests something, it doesn't matter what it is. I will generally prioritize that on the list because why not? Hey, if people request it, then they want to hear it. Why not do those first, right? Makes no difference to me. It's all a bunch of interesting stuff anyways.
I figure like the notes and stuff that we take, we could probably make them longer anyways by just double spacing and making the font bigger. So
yeah,
just like a book report.
Yeah. Put some bar graphs in there. That's how you get to 20 pages. No problem.
Hell yeah. Do it.
Yeah. All right. So
it's an endless list.
Before we get started on this week's episode, I just found out in Discord, one of the people in Discord just linked, I guess they do anime on YouTube. I don't know anything about their channel because I just found out that they had a channel, but if anybody is interested in anime type stuff, check out Grayscaling on YouTube. I'm going to check it out later when I get a chance. And anime, I'm a big fan of anime, so anything anime I'm definitely interested in. And it's pretty cool if you get to interact with somebody who's actually making anime. Like that makes it way cooler. So shout out to Grayscaling and check out their stuff on YouTube. All right. Now let's get into it. The Jersey Devil. I think Agent Ether is going to cover some of the history and mythology and stuff like that. Right, Agent Ether?
Well, I'd like to start with the history of the Leeds family because often the Jersey Devil is called the Leeds Devil.
Okay.
And the area where the Jersey Devil was actually named by an old Indian tribe. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but they called it the Papusing or Place of the Dragon, which I thought was interesting. So it has some historical context there as well.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't know Native Americans had dragons. I thought that was like a European thing or something.
Maybe it's an equivalent. Maybe it's some sort of cryptid.
Maybe, yeah. Or, actually, Chinese people have dragons too. So maybe it's not a European thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. See dragons in Indonesia, China, Japan.
So maybe it is like an international thing.
Well, some Dutch explorers came through later and they called it the Drakekill or Dragon River.
you think that was influenced by the Native Americans?
I would think
name
so.
of it?
Yeah, that would make sense. So the area didn't start being settled till 1960s, and it would have been, that can't be right.
Wait, the 1960s?
That cannot be right.
Wait, what?
I think that's a typo.
I think it's a typo too. It must be 1660s.
Well, we did recently cover time travel, so that could come into play there. You know, I mean, maybe.
Finger
never mind.
slip.
That's too much of a stretch.
The area began to get settled in the 1660s by the Quakers, who are also known as the Society of Friends. They were often persecuted in England for their beliefs because they thought that God was found within, not through clergy and ritual.
How dare they?
Well, that's a lot of religions. You know, it's all about the ritual. So this was a little different. They were strongly pacifists and anti-royalists. And the area where they were to settle in southeast Jersey had a lot of forest and swamp. And there were some old Indian roads that went through these, but travel was somewhat difficult.
Because they didn't have off-road vehicles yet?
Yeah, no Humvees, so.
I bet there's some good 4x4 trails up there. But it's an extremely heavily, densely forested area.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, like, and there's the bogs. There's some bogs and like swampland in the area as well. So some of the areas are very hard to travel through. Extremely hard.
The area we're going to talk about that most of the sightings happen is the area in New Jersey, generally called the Pine Barrens. And that's the largest remaining section of the Atlantic coastal Pine Barrens. It's about 1.1 million acres, or about 22% of New Jersey's land area.
Wow.
So we're talking about a huge,
I don't even know how to
huge
I don't
area.
even know how to think about that type of. That's a gigantic landmass.
We're not talking about a couple of trees on a hill here. We're talking about a vast woodland or barren.
Well, I don't know
Pine
too.
area.
We're not even talking a couple hills.
Yeah.
I read that orchids grow there, like a lot of different varieties of orchids.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just a little tidbit.
Among other things.
Among other things, yeah.
Well, the area does have a very diverse amount of like wildlife and stuff. It's teeming with life, you know, and so dense that, I mean, there could be something we haven't seen.
There definitely could be.
And there is.
And it's called the Jersey Devil.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the first governor of New Jersey was Lord Cornbury, and he was pretty much hated. He was a very unpopular English figure. He would take a counselor by the name of Daniel Leeds in 1677. Daniel Leeds had 3 wives, and it was hard to nail down. They had somewhere between 8 and 12 children total. And he would pass his property and his business later to his son Titan, and their home would become Leeds Point in the Pine Barrens. And what's interesting is that when his son inherited the business, he changed his family crest to depict like this bat-like creature on the back of a shield. Do you guys know how to pronounce this? Wyvern?
I think it's just wyvern.
Wyvern?
Yeah.
So it was a wyvern
It's one of the two.
on a shield. That was their family crest.
Right. And that's a little bit naughty back then, because that symbology, that's not like a wholesome Christian type symbology. That's sort of a little naughty, like on the satanic side of things, if you will.
But it makes sense.
I've actually ridden a wyvern.
Really?
It was in a video game, but like,
all
I rode
right.
it.
All right.
Well, that's a
I
little
tamed it and
less
everything,
exciting
too.
than I imagined.
Yeah, you're right.
But Anderson's right. It was a little naughty. And part of that's where it comes from is that Leeds was a Quaker, but he started publishing this almanac. And it had a lot of like astrology in it. And the Quakers considered it pretty like heretical. And he was ostracized and censored. So he broke away from the Society of Friends, the Quakers, and continued to publish. He wrote tracts and pamphlets, and in 1688 he wrote a book, Temple of Wisdom, and it had topics like magic, astrology, and demonology. And Leeds claimed, I saw this, I don't know if it's true, but Leeds claimed as a young man he had visions. A lot of his material would be anti-Quaker, and he would eventually convert to Anglicanism. And in response to Leeds' publications, the Quakers released a pamphlet accusing Leeds of working with the devil.
Okay, wait, let's back up just a little bit there, because I found a really interesting story about this almanac that involves Benjamin Franklin, which I was like,
the one I was thinking of.
I was like, what? Benjamin Franklin's in this story. All right, now this is a lot more interesting. I guess it turns out that Benjamin Franklin was like the OG American troll, because so he was in competing business with him with his Poor Richard's Almanac. And he said that, so there's Daniel Leeds was the father, and he eventually passed on the business and everything to his son, Titan, Daniels. No,
yeah.
Titan. So, I mean, what the heck? That's a very powerful name, Titan Leeds, right? That's you name your kid Titan. That's kind of like naming your kid like Adonis. Like, oh, this is gonna be a good looking kid. You don't know that. Like it's just a baby right now, you know.
El Guapo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a powerful name.
It takes a lot of I don't know, a lot of chutzpah to name your kid something like that. Chutzpah. Yeah, I missed that. I didn't roll that.
It's like that Johnny Cash song, A Boy Named Sue.
Yeah,
like, it's like if you're gonna name your kid something like that, something outrageous to some effect, then that's gonna have a serious impact on their life.
Yeah. So, anyways,
so like a name like Titan is either gonna make or break you. You know.
As the story goes, Benjamin there was in competition and he was trying to get his market share up. So he claimed that the astrological signs said that Titan would die in 1733. This didn't happen because, you know, well, I don't want to, a lot of people believe in astrology. I'm not one of them. So we'll just leave it at that. But when this happened, Titan published stuff saying that, you know, Franklin was a fool and an idiot and whatever, you know, basically your typical slander.
It went back and forth and back and forth.
But the funny part was that after the date that he predicted, Benjamin Franklin said that Titan had actually died and his ghost was the one publishing these articles and these almanacs and stuff from beyond the grave. And I guess this was, people really got a kick out of this. It was done in a style that was apparently very obviously a joke, right? Like he wasn't really saying that this guy's ghost was, you know, whatever. But so this was apparently very successful and it helped the Poor Richard's Almanac to gain market share or to become more popular. So I just wanted to throw that little bit in there because I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know if it's true. I didn't have time to look into that particular thing, but anybody interested, you could probably find somewhere on the internet these old copies. Somebody's has to have scanned in something like Poor Richard's Almanac. That's like a classic that has to be scanned in somewhere. So this has to be available, right? You would think. I don't know. But anyway, sorry to interrupt. Agent Ether, please continue.
No, that's what I had about the history, except I wanted to mention that he also had a brother, Japhet. And in his will, it says that he had 12 children. And he was either married to someone named Jane or Deborah. But some people think that maybe his wife was actually the original Mother Leeds. So it's not clear if it was one of Daniel Leeds' wives or maybe Japhet's wives where the origin comes from, the origin story.
Okay.
I wonder how common it was back then to have that many children, because especially if it was by one woman, because obviously they didn't have the medical advancements that we have nowadays, so it was nowhere near as safe, right?
Well,
to have a child.
I know one of the reasons I couldn't find how many children Daniel Leeds actually had was a couple of them died during childbirth, and his second wife also died during childbirth. So it was common to have a lot of children, but a lot of them would not reach adulthood, or they would pass at birth.
Yeah, that's why you had to have like 10 of them, because, you know, they wouldn't all make it.
No, it was very.
That's why people back in those days, they were hard. They were hard people. You know, what they went through. You know, they just didn't have the advancements and the luxuries that we have nowadays, man. And like you hear, you know, you just sometimes you'll read like a historical documentary book or something like that, you know, and like you'll hear these testimonies about like you know, certain figures and how many children they had that passed away like at birth or like early on in their lives for a cold or the flu, you know, or some disease or something like that they just didn't have the ability to fight back then, you know.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like, you know, some of these people lived in such a far sprung areas. Like, hey, if there was a doctor, you might have to travel a day or two to get to him. You know, by that point, I mean, you know, whatever they had going on may be done with, you know, as far as their life goes, but.
Yeah, I don't know though. I mean, I got it pretty rough. Have you ever tried to correctly position a microphone in front of Agent Ether? that's really, I mean, gosh, you know, that's right. That's just as bad as living back in colonial times. I tell you what.
I'm sure.
It's an ordeal, I tell you. No, just kidding. Of course, it's not.
Let me tell you, sometimes when I'm cooking bacon in a pan without a shirt on, which I do sometimes because I'm an idiot, like I'll burn myself, and that's a real, you know, that shit sucks. That's, you know, it makes my life hard. You know, I'll still eat the bacon, of course. You know, I'm not mad at the bacon. You know,
hey, you got to blame the pan on that one.
First world problems, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. All right. Now, have you touched yet on? I'm sure you're about to get to the origin of the legend and like the different stories involved.
Yeah, there's one story. I think the most common story is that Mother Leeds, whoever she was, found out she was pregnant with her 13th child, and she cursed it. She said it might as well be a child of the devil, a devil child. And it was. It was either born that way, or after it was born, it became that way, and it would escape into the wild.
Yeah, I saw some stories that it actually flew up through the chimney.
Flew up through the chimney.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah,
like, oh, dude,
yeah.
That's kind of funny.
That's kind of one of the things about this story is like the origin story that surrounds it. There's a lot of different versions.
Yeah,
there's a lot of similarities too. But like some of the versions, like one of them, I heard that, you know, somebody opened the door to let it out because they were afraid. They're just get it out, you know, like, and then, yeah, I did hear that story about what it just found it found its way up the chimney somehow, which I don't know, being a brand new born, whatever it was, I find that kind of unlikely. But like, you hear like, it was like born a devil, and then some stories you hear that it was born and then changed into a devil type creature, like in front of everybody, you know, everybody just started flipping out and running all over the place and stuff. And like anytime anybody got next to it, like it started hissing at him and stuff, and like, you know, trying to defend itself or something like that, you know?
Like a cat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also like the description of the beast, throughout the millennia or whatever, throughout the years, there's a lot of different like descriptions of it, but there also is a lot of similarities. And most of the stories is described as having hoofs and also described as having wings. So like those are like the two things that I kind of saw out of all the descriptions that I read or watched. Yeah, it definitely had hooves and wings, but there's all sorts of different combinations of other parts of the body that have been described as well. But I find it very interesting, like this character that is up there, you know, that people are very adamant about. So some of these like testimonies, like some of the videos that I watched, like for example, I'm not going to get too far ahead here, but like some of those people seem like a little wishy-washy, but there was a couple of them that, damn it, they seemed like they were adamant about what they saw. Like they were like in absolute matter of fact terms, like what they described, like they didn't seem like they were trying to blow smoke up anybody's ass. You know, that's all. You know, I'm just saying those all. You know, but
well, there's a lot of people out there.
This is a very interesting character.
They sound honest because they believe what they're saying, and whether or not it's true, they're honest people.
Yeah.
You know, that's their experience. That's how that's how they see it, and that's how it may or may not be.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting thing about a lot of cryptid cases is that you get so many witnesses, particularly some of the more prominent ones like like Bigfoot or something, that whether or not you believe Bigfoot exists, there's so many people reporting it that it has to be something. It can't be nothing. There has to be something that people are seeing. I mean, sure, some of them are probably hoaxes or whatever, people just making up stories, but I find it hard to believe that they're all just making up stories. There's just so many witnesses. Every year there's more and more.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the unfortunate things like that surrounds some of these cases, especially like the most famous ones, is because there is so many hoaxes, you know, so many provable hoaxes, you know, that were obviously hoaxes that like it kind of just discredits everything else around it. And then you don't know what the hell to believe. You know, they're like, well, what is credible information? I mean, there's always going to be an objective way to look at it, of course. Evidence is evidence. You know what I mean? And you got to look at that, I suppose. But it's I hate when the waters get muddied, you know, by all these people that are just trying to gain like attention or whatever they're trying to do, you know.
Well, some of them do it just for the fun of doing it. Like one of the earliest, what used to be considered the earliest. I talked about it in a previous episode, but I forget all of the particulars because it was a while ago. But in the late 1800s, there's a fellow who came up with the story that was considered the earliest case of like cattle mutilation. And he said that like a strange flying object tried to lasso a cattle or whatever and pull it up into the ship. And it turns out a researcher discovered, and again, I wish I knew the researcher's name because this was, you know, a nice piece of work to dig this up. But he discovered this fellow was actually part of a liars club, and the liars club would have like a monthly contest to see who could get the most outrageous thing published in some newspaper or whatever. And they didn't get any money or benefit. It was just like I don't know, just, you know, the winner just got like, you know, probably they bought him a round of beer or something, you know, like you win. You've got the most ridiculous story in there, you know,
and everyone believes it.
Yeah. So,
It's
I mean,
it's like a gentleman's bet.
yeah, exactly.
You're not doing it for the benefit of anything, really, just besides just to do it. Maybe just for the fun of it, I suppose.
Right. So
I know that I did see actually that I did actually see a story of in that area in 1804 there was a posse that was formed due to like what they thought was a creature that was killing livestock. And they didn't solve the problem, but they did create a posse and tried to hunt something in the area because I guess there was a bunch of livestock that was being killed and mutilated. And they figured it wasn't a person or a human doing this. This was some kind of beast or something. So, but they never. It was just one of those stories that I read where they formed a posse. They went out with torches and axes and stuff, but nothing ever came of it. You know.
That's a thing, right? We talked about it with the vampires and the chupacabra, and now the Jersey Devil. People forming posses and going hunting.
Well, and especially back then, I mean, you know, the people were terrified at one point. But this case actually goes back a couple hundred years. Before we go on to more, I don't think did we give a description of the creature yet? I don't think we said a description.
Not fully, no.
Yeah.
So, not really, no.
The description I gave, or that I found, there's a bunch of different ones, but they're all pretty similar. And it's sort of like a kangaroo-like creature with the face of a horse, head of a dog, and bat-like wings, horns, and a tail.
And I read maybe dragon claws.
Yeah, dragon claws. There's a little variation there, but a lot of them say, you know, head of a dog and face of a horse. That's the most common stuff. And also bat-like wings.
Yeah.
You know, the other
I saw
stuff,
like face of a horse or like face of like a cow. But like when I saw a lot of the descriptions, when they saw a horse face, they would say sometimes it would have like horns on the top of it. And like a lot of the descriptions that I saw were like the legs were like goat legs, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you know, hairy thighs and calves and stuff, and then goat hooves, you know?
Yeah.
And then obviously the different joints that goats have in their legs, you know, if they're standing on, if they're bipedal, right? That'd be very different. But I've heard, you know, descriptions of it being bipedal and also traveling on all fours. So I think most of the ones that are traveling on all fours are probably something like a bear or something, you know, that they're seeing. Most likely, because bears do stand up on two legs sometimes, you know, but it's because they're foraging for like berries or something, or maybe they're trying to get to something higher than them, you know. But yeah, I think there are some potential descriptions for this, but let's get more into the actual description of the cryptid here, though. So yeah, it's had, you know, supposedly goat hooves, a lot of times described as being winged. And sometimes being like described as being small, like 3 foot high or 4 foot high at most. But a lot of the descriptions, I've seen some that like describe the damn thing as being like 7 feet or something. Like in some of the testimonies that people have, even some of the pictures. Like I've seen pictures of people that you know, say that they were kind of not necessarily attacked, but stalked by this thing, like right outside their house, and then they like ran inside the house. And then they take pictures of like hoof prints on, like, cause there's snow on top of their house, you know? And I've seen a couple different instances of that. And like, yeah, could you recreate that? Could it be faked? Oh, sure. Right. Yeah, it definitely could. But like, the descriptions that they provide are pretty damn, like I said, some of these ones are like, they're very matter of fact about it. And like, just for the reason that they decided to provide photo evidence or something, or even take it, you know, means that possibly they could be very genuine about what they're doing just because they decided to do that. They put the effort towards, you know?
Yeah. And the most important part of the description, that the most common thing that everybody said, at least that it seemed to me, was that the creature emitted a high-pitched, blood-curdling scream. And I imagine that sounded something like this. Like that.
Agent Anderson said that we should each give our own version of the scream, but
Agent Ether declined. What do you think it sounded like, Agent ETA?
Maybe or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly how I imagined it.
I read it made a hissing sound.
Yeah. Well, most of the reports I saw.
Like, it could have been like this. Hiss, I'm a slippery little snake. Hiss. No, I'm sorry. That's one of my favorite memes, and I always find that extremely hilarious. But just because he hissed at some of these characters, I suppose, I threw that in.
You know what's hilarious is I don't know what you're talking about, so it's really funny on my end.
If anybody does know what I'm talking about, then they will find. I assume they probably will find it hilarious. I don't know. I love memes. I love memes. I am a survivor of the great meme war of 2017 and 18. By the way.
Yeah, I was in a neutral zone for that one. It's called having kids.
I was well involved and had a grand old time. Just a grand old time. But let's get back to the story, though. We're getting a little off track.
Oh yeah, you're definitely gonna have to edit some of that out. All right. Where were you, Agent Ether?
Oh well, we could talk about other origin stories.
Yes, because there were several. Actually,
yeah. One of them was that it was actually a family curse. Not that it had been passed down from generation to generation, just that the family had somehow been cursed. And one of the ways was that, I guess, because of the whole conversion from, being a Quaker or the fact that they were Quakers, there were some reports that a clergyman had actually cursed the family, or specifically Mother Leeds.
Well, they kind of did.
And then there was another one about a British soldier. The town actually put a curse on a girl who fell in love with a British soldier.
And back then, remember that the British were. This origin story is from just before the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, they'd come into the area. I guess there were some iron forges, and they were supplying the privateers, a.k.a. pirates. So they wanted to come in and take them out. And so she was cursed as a traitor.
Yeah. Well, they actually had a battle over those iron forges at one point where the British actually was unsuccessful at taking them. But that area at that point in time, they were producing a lot of metal. And actually, as a matter of fact, they had a really good glassworks there as well. Shipbuilding in the area too. I mean, that area was at the time a very productive area as far as industry goes.
Yeah, there was. Lots of industry. I don't know where to go with that one.
Well, no. All right. So after the English took over New Jersey from the Dutch in 1664, they built up a lot of infrastructure for whaling, shipbuilding, and also there was a lot of really good iron deposits in the area. And then they also found out a little bit later on, not too much later, but a little bit later on, the sands in the area were really good, high quality sands for making glass. So that was another one of the industries that popped up after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I thought Agent Ether was going to say something, and then she did, and I was like, "Oh crap, we can't have dead air. I got to say something." And I was like, That's hilarious. I'll edit out the silent part, but not the other stuff because it's funny. That's the one thing. Some podcasts, they don't edit out their silent parts, and I'm always like, did my thing stop playing? Is it broken? What's going on here? Because sometimes it stops playing, and you got to go and press play again. So I try to. I don't like having silent parts. But all right. Anyways, do you have any more origin stories there?
I do. We have the good old-fashioned gypsy curse.
Oh, good. Come on. Why not? There were gypsies in the colonies.
You never get to be gypsy.
It's gypsies everywhere.
All right. I guess so.
The origin story here would be pretty typical that a gypsy came and a girl would deny her food, and the gypsy would curse her to give birth to a devil child.
Yeah, fair enough.
That actually sounds a lot like the plot to Beauty and the Beast. actually kind of reminds me.
Okay.
Every time I hear gypsy, I just think Stephen King's Thinner.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I was thinking as well.
Creepy.
I don't know why, but that story made an impression on me when I was younger. I don't know why.
But the one thing I don't like about that story is the main character was like, he was just too much of a goody two shoes. He had several chances to get out, and I don't want to spoil the story for anybody, but I mean, it was unrealistic.
Dude, when was that? When did he write that?
I have no idea.
A Stephen King story was unrealistic. Really?
I can tell you I read it in the 90s, but I don't know when it was written. Well, actually, now that you mention it, I do have the internet right here in front of me, so let's go ahead and look that up.
The Google machine, baby. Or I prefer the DuckDuckGo machine, to be honest. But
yeah, a lot more out there. Switch, people. Switch to DuckDuck.
The problem with
the movie, the movie was a bit of an atrocity, but like I remember there were some pretty memorable moments though, like when the old man kind of like brushes his hand across his face and says, "Thinner." It's like, what the fuck, dude? The hell is that? Like, I don't know, like the way that the actor, I guess, delivered it, I guess for me, like it was weird. I don't know. I just found it very weird.
Yeah. So it says here 1984, and he wrote it under his pseudonym Richard Bachman, which he was trying to write books under a different name so that he could write them without people, I don't know, bad reviews or whatever. I mean, there's a reason he had for it, and I forget what that reason was, but I think it had something to do with he didn't like how the critics were constantly talking smack about his books or something like that.
He just wanted to show that he could. He wanted to show he could make a name for himself based solely on his writing.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. Not based on his name, but based on his writing.
Yeah, and if you look at the cover of this novel on Wikipedia, the cover they have, the name Richard Bachman is smaller than the title of the book. I remember a lot of Stephen King books, like the name Stephen King would be bigger than the title of the book because that's what people paid for. They're like, oh, Stephen King, I'll buy it. I don't care what it is. It's very popular back in the day. Very popular. But anyways, where were we? Oh yeah, gypsies.
And that's it for that. And then we also have the townspeople thought that the mother was a witch and the father was the devil himself. And together they born and gave birth to this demon child. As
you do if you're a witch and the devil?
Yes. Yeah, and then
makes sense.
The last one I have is that the family was actually part of a mysterious cult. An evil cult.
They kind of were into the occult, it appears. So I have another origin story that I don't know if you came across, but the level-headed approach, or the skeptical approach, I suppose you might say, whichever, is that the Leeds family, being royal supporters, everybody hated them pretty much. And they were powerful and influential, so I guess you couldn't just kill them necessarily, but nobody liked them because they supported the royals. So also combine that with the fact that they were into the occult, or at least the father was into the occult. I'm assuming the family was into it as well. And that the Quakers, being highly religious, did not like that. They earned a certain reputation, and people started to call them the Leeds Devils, or the Leeds Devil, referring to maybe the father. And over time, that became sort of like this urban myth or legend or something where, people would tell their kids, oh, don't go out in the woods, the Leeds Devil's out there, sort of like the boogeyman or something, right? And it evolved over time, and it wasn't until the early 1900s when people actually started commonly calling it the Jersey Devil instead of the Leeds Devil. And that at that point, there started to be a lot of sightings in 1909. I mean, it goes back a little further than 1909. I think 1903 is maybe when it started happening, when I think it was Norman Jeffries hoaxed he glued some stuff to a kangaroo or something to try to get people to come to like a penny museum.
Yeah, they glued stuff to it and like spray painted it, basically.
Ah, that poor animal.
They were not spray painted. I don't know, but they painted it. It seemed to me a very poor effort. It sucks. Yeah, it sucks for that kangaroo.
Yeah. So it was basically a family that was not liked locally, and they said stuff about them, and it just sort of evolved over time. And that combined with the fact that the Pine Barrens area also had a bad reputation, and the people living in that area, some people actually lived in those areas in like the Pine Barrens, and those people have a name called the Pineys, I guess. And people like highwaymen, outcasts, fugitives, poachers, moonshiners, the outcasts of society basically tended to live there because, they're under the radar. It's really hard to catch somebody in rough terrain like that. Even
like even
nowadays,
some of the outlaws from the Appalachians and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Think like Robin Hood or something, but the American Robin Hoods who didn't necessarily give to the poor, but they did steal. But there was a group of highwaymen who would steal and help support, the British effort as well. So it was an area where it had a bad reputation for, like if you're walking by there and your kids said, "Hey, we should go in there," you're like, "No, don't go in there. That's where the bad people are," that kind of a thing. So
we don't want to come across them there Pineys now, son.
Yeah, exactly. So it also the area in general had this sort of reputation that possibly contributed to the mythology of it, if that's what it is. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying this is one story that I read. All right. So that's did you have anything else, Agent Ether?
No.
Before I go on? You didn't?
No, that was all the origin stories I could find, every little last one.
Okay, nice. Now there are a lot of sightings throughout the years, like a ton of sightings, which is, like I said earlier, it's hard to believe that all of these sightings are nothing. There seems like there has to be something behind it, but what that thing is, who knows? But Agent ETA has a really interesting story about a guy that the first time I saw his name, I was like, that sounds like a made-up name. Why don't you go ahead with your bit, with your sighting there, Agent ETA?
My bit. This is a real story, sir. This is a real story told by a historical character that accomplished quite a bit in his lifetime as well. And he was attached to another very historical character that overshadowed him, even though he was his younger brother. The person in which I speak of is Joseph Bonaparte, the older brother to Napoleon Bonaparte, the Napoleon that everybody knows,
See, that sounds made up to me. Hold on. That sounds made up. Like,
what?
Oh yeah, Napoleon totally had a brother. What was his name? His name was Joe. His brother was named Joe.
His name was Joe.
Was he shorter than his brother?
I do not know that. I do not. But I assume he wasn't, because that whole thing about like having like a Napoleon complex, you know what I mean? If you're really short, some people like that makes them super aggressive, like as far as like how competitive they are or whatever they're trying to accomplish in their life, I've seen it before. That shit happens, man. That's a thing. It's a real thing, I think.
And I don't know.
Have you ever seen a Chihuahua that's over aggressive?
I don't know. I've seen some of those fighters though, like those MMA fighters who fight in the really low weight class, and they're like tiny. They're tiny little guys, and they're kicking ass.
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah, hell yeah. I mean, there's been quite a few, but like, Demetrius Johnson is my favorite. I'll just tell you that much right now. All right, that's in my opinion. That's my goat.
He was so good that most of his fights were.
He still is. What are you talking about? He was.
Okay, fine.
No, he still is. He's fighting over one championship. He's
fine. He is. But I mean, in his prime, when he was the champion, like he was so good in the UFC that his fights were they were kind of boring because he outclassed everybody by so much. And it's not like he was fighting chumps the whole time. He was fighting legit dudes, and he just, man, that guy's so good.
Yeah. He never became really popular. He was never one of those fighters that puts a lot of asses in the seats or sells a lot of tickets. But in my opinion, he was one of the most highly trained, like just one of the most technical fighters you could find out there at anywhere, even today. Well, maybe not today. He's maybe not today. Yeah, but in his prime, like, and he's still damn freaking good. But like, it's the game is catching up. I mean. The game is getting, like, trainers are getting smarter and smarter, and they're picking up on things here and there and putting plans together that work, for their fighters. But at any rate, let's get back to freaking dang old Joe Bonaparte there.
Good old Joey.
Hey, good old Joe Bonaparte. How you doing? No, so Joseph Bonaparte was the firstborn there in that line of kids. He was the older brother to Napoleon Bonaparte. And the guy, like I said, he accomplished quite a bit in his lifetime. The dude had been through quite a bit, good and bad. But the reason why I kind of almost am inclined to believe his story is because, like, the dude had a reputation, like, and he had a pretty damn good reputation, as a matter of fact. He wasn't a failure. As a matter of fact, so the dude he had been a previous king when he had this sighting, and I'll kind of explain to you a little bit, like, the road that led him to being in this area, because obviously he's not from North America, So the guy was a king of Naples from 1806 to 1808. And that's not a long period of time, but he actually was accredited to doing quite a few good things for that area at the time. He revamped the monetary system as far as, like, what their coinage was, and made it much more just like easier to deal with. And he also increased the amount of silver in their coins to 70% from, like, I don't remember what it was very low percentage at, before then, which, obviously makes the coinage more valuable. And what he was planning on doing basically with that is making things more consistent, because at the time they weren't when he took over. So he did a lot of good things in Naples, improved, like, roadways, schools. There's a lot of infrastructure that he built in a very short period of time. I mean, he built a bunch of, like, bases and upgraded, like, certain technologies of the military, even like I was impressed reading the long list of stuff that he accomplished just during those 2 years. Like, how the hell did this guy do this? Like, it really stuck out to me. Like, I do think that the guy, even though, his brother was Napoleon, I do think he is actually a pretty important historical figure. He was involved in a lot of important stuff in Europe, but at any rate, so he was the king of Naples hacking from 1806. He probably was using a Game Shark or something.
Yeah, good old cheat codes.
So he was the king of Naples from 1806 to 1808, and then he was actually removed from that position by his brother Napoleon, and he was appointed to be the king of Spain. And so, like, reading into the history and stuff, like, in hindsight now, like, if I was him, I'd be like, damn it. Like, really, dude? Like, why you want? I mean, he was doing so good in Naples. Like, the people there loved him for the most part, You're always going to have people that, anyways, haters going to hate, right? Anyways, so he was moved from that position to be the king of Spain. And the whole time he was the king of Spain from 1808 to 1813, he had all kinds of problems because, like, the public just didn't accept him. You know what I mean? And then, so he had all kinds of, like, attacks on his troops and stuff. Like, there was, like, guerrilla warfare that he had to deal with, and he had problems the entire time he was there. So, it wasn't a great deal for him, like, I don't know. I guess I'm not that, like, competitive of a person. So if I would have done good in Naples, I would have just stayed there if I had the option. But your brother is Napoleon, so you kind of have to do what he tells you to do. Even though he's your younger brother, which must have, that must have sucked for him, right? He was the oldest brother, but his younger brother Napoleon, like, just completely, like, was so much more successful in, like, he just, I mean, obviously he rose to great heights and great lows as well, throughout his career, but it's like he was obviously overshadowed.
At least he didn't end up on an island somewhere being poisoned.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
And usually...
he didn't die of stomach cancer,
Usually the eldest sibling is like an A-type personality and spends their childhood giving noogies to the younger siblings. So that might be what happened to Napoleon, right? He's like, I'm sick of these damn noogies. I'm going to get this son of a bitch.
At some point, he just exploded in a whole bunch of effort, because of what he had been put through. His brother probably held him down and farted in his face. I mean, that's what I would do, but I didn't because I was the youngest of five. But and that happened to me usually, anyways. So when he was the king of Spain, basically, there was this thing called the Peninsula War, where there was a coalition of Portuguese. English and was it Spanish? I think also or something like that. That basically attacked him, and he relinquished. Sorry, that's a difficult one for me now right here. Yeah, he gave up the throne and he went to exile basically. And now, especially after because that was after Napoleon had lost the war at Waterloo, so like he didn't have too much power anymore.
Yeah, but he certainly had a lot of money. He went into exile, but he did it with style.
Yep.
Oh, hell yeah, he did. So he settled after that in Bordentown, New Jersey, and built just an amazing estate that like overlooked the Delaware River. Like it was a thing of beauty, from what I understand. I saw some like drawing depictions of it and stuff, and it seemed pretty damn fancy, indeed. And he held all kinds of different guests, from like John Adams to, I mean, any prominent figure of the day, really. I mean, this guy was the former king of freaking Spain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was in exile in the United States, and so he would go on all sorts of different like hunting trips and stuff, and travel the lands and such, and stop at different taverns and stuff. And actually, there was a tavern at Cedar Ridge, the Cedar Ridge Tavern in Barnegat, New Jersey. I think that's how that. I don't know. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, but they found some of his coins that were minted during his reign in Spain at that site. So they believe that like that's proof that like, well, I mean, obviously the estate that he built is the proof. Like there's no, arguing whether he was there or not, but like that tavern was actually pretty close to the area that he claimed to have actually witnessed the Jersey Devil. So there's a couple different tellings of the story. Some of them are more elaborate than others. The main one is pretty simple. He was basically hunting around his lands, and he came across this creature that was nothing like anything he had ever seen, and it like just like came across, landed, and flew away. And that was the first story that I saw, but there are actually more in-depth stories. So it says it was like snowy outside and stuff, and it was in the afternoon. And it appears this was in 1820 when this happened. And I've seen a couple different dates and stuff, but I really can't decide which one I think is the best one, to be honest. But it looked like it happened early in 1820. And Joseph Bonaparte was, around his area, his lands, and he was hunting, which he was known to do. He was a very active hunter. And he was hold on, sorry, dude, I lost. Hey, edit. Edit. Sorry for the people that who are listening. Sorry. All right, I lost I was moving from two different pages, and I lost my spot in my notes here. Okay, so all right, let me start over again here, or continue, whatever. So it was a snowy afternoon around his lands, and he was traveling alone in the snowy. Did I say snowy?
Yes.
Damn it! Damn it all!
Sometimes it is a snowy afternoon. It happens.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time. So it was a snowy afternoon, and this guy was hunting around his lands in the woods. It wasn't too far away from his house, and he spotted some like strange tracks on the grounds and stuff. And there were tracks that didn't look familiar to him, even though he wasn't like a super expert, but he was pretty damn good at what he knew, like what was in the area. He had been hunting there for a while already. He said it looked like a 2-footed donkey print, which I don't know quite what that means. Like I can see that I could kind of visualize the hoofs of a donkey. So I mean, would that be like two donkey feet connected together? Like, and you see like 2 hoofs, but like 4 like prints. You know what I mean? You know how a hoof is designed. It usually has a separation in the middle and the front, and kind of 2 points that come out, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, he saw those tracks, and then he heard a noise like above him, and he saw like something come down and land like pretty close to him. And first of all, like the tracks, when he stopped, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped over that part. When he stopped, because he was following these tracks, and he stopped when the tracks stopped. And like he said, it looked like he followed it for a little bit of ways, a couple hundred feet, and it just stopped and like went away. And he described them as being, recently fresh tracks. They weren't brand new, but they weren't old. They were very discernible. You could see them in the snow just fine. And it looked like the whatever was leaving these tracks basically just jumped up and flew away, and which I think is a pretty important part of his explanation. So at any rate, the thing, he heard something above him, and it actually came over him and landed close to him. And he says that he was very frightened. He was astonished. And it looked like a horse-like, like the head was like a horse-like head, and it had bird-like legs, and it had wings, of course, And he said it froze in place and was just, he didn't know what to do. He even forgot that he had a rifle on him, I guess, And so for a moment, I guess neither one of them moved. And like then the thing started hissing at him, And I guess he must have reacted or something like that. He said it beat its wings a couple times and then flew away. And that was kind of pretty much the extent of the interaction. But I find it pretty funny though, because like what was that thing doing? I guess it had seen him and then landed next to him. Maybe it was like saying like, hey, this is my land, or this is my territory, not yours, or something. Maybe it's something like a territorial pissing or something. But he wasn't attacked by it. It just like beat its wings a couple times, kind of made a display, and like then took off, like just to let you know, I guess, Hey, Joe, just to let you know, I'm a badass motherfucker in this area, and this is my area, So I don't know. I don't know quite what to think about that story, but I do kind of tend to believe a little bit. Maybe I'm being naive, but when the guy told the story to other people, for the most part, it seems like people pretty much believed him. And like I said before, the guy was an extremely well-known individual, and he had a lot of respect. He had accomplished quite a few things in his life. And he was also, obviously very rich. So maybe that's why people believed him. They're like, oh, yeah. Cool story, Joe. Give me some money or something. I have this business venture you might be interested in.
Well, they'd be like, they're going to pretend to believe him whether or not they believe him.
Who knows? Who knows which way that might have gone. But it seems like most people did believe him. And for his reputation that he had, as well respected as he was, I don't know why you'd risk that with some outlandish tale like this, unless it was something that you think you really did experience. I mean, and that's my opinion of the story, to be quite honest. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it was for real, like definitely happened, but I lean towards it must have been some kind of experience that he thought was real, because he did have quite a bit of a reputation to risk there. And he didn't, somebody like that, when you reach those kind of lofty heights, that's something that you don't want to be seen as a fool ever, right?
Yeah, you got like a reputation.
But then again, being the older brother, your reputation. But then again, being the older brother of Napoleon Bonaparte, and having your younger brother, eclipse you in accomplishments and stuff, and maybe he just didn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Maybe he just didn't care.
Yeah, who knows?
Like I said, that was one of the stories. Yeah. That was one of the stories I found the most interesting, just because it involved a very prominent historical character that I was already aware of. I was like, oh, I know who that is. Like, obviously I know a lot more about who his brother is, but yeah, I recognize that name right away, and this motherfucker had an encounter with a Jersey Devil. Well, I got to read into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's really interesting to me that there's a couple of historical figures we've talked about. It'd be like if, George Washington saw a Bigfoot or something and reported that. You're like, who now? George Washington? Okay, well, if he saw it.
No, it was George Washington's brother.
Oh, yeah, his brother. Right. Well, you know what I mean, though. It's just really interesting that there's some people involved with this story that are, pretty important historical figures.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's probably the highest ranking particular historical figure that actually saw the thing. But I do have a bunch of accounts of, I didn't go into that much depth in any of them, because there's just so many of them. But for example, there's one, Tom Brown Jr., who lived in the area in the Pine Barrens. He was a piney. I guess he liked to go and rough it out there in the woods or whatever. And he put mud on himself to protect himself from mosquitoes. And he says that several hikers reported him as the Jersey Devil because, as everybody knows, if you cover yourself in mud, you look exactly like a dog with a horse face and wings.
Yeah. And you can also protect yourself against the predator, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know?
Yeah. I wonder if
you can yell at the Jersey Devil, "Come for me! I'm here! Get me! Kill me!"
Yeah.
Sorry.
I wonder.
Sorry, that's just totally like anytime I hear anybody covering themselves in mud, I immediately think of that scene.
Do it now. I wonder if
do it now.
I wonder if he actually chased down these hikers, like hissing and screeching at them, because that would be hilarious.
That'd be fun.
In fact, if I ever go to New Jersey, I'm going to make a point to cover myself in mud, hang out in the Pine Barrens until I see a hiker, and then screech at them.
It's a good way to get shot.
I mean, I think a more effective thing to do, would be like cover yourself in mud. I mean, you got to be naked, obviously. Yeah. Stand at the side of the road and just do the whirly bird, like with your hands with your hands in the air, just like making all sorts of whatever kind of noises you want, like whatever noise you think the Jersey Devil does, whether it be like, I don't even know whatever noise they might make. That's my favorite, but
yeah, just sit there doing that. Yeah, that I'm sure that would definitely end up in the news.
What if like the noises like the Jersey Devil makes aren't even like intimidating at all? What if they're like, you remember that movie Kung Pao Enter the Fist? You remember like the love interest of like the martial artist fighter there, the guy, the hero of the movie. You know how she sounded just like Miss Piggy, right? I think it might have been the same voice actor. I don't know, but it was very similar. And she would go like wee wee. What if like the Jersey Devil actually sounds like that? Like you hear this like wee wee. You're like, what? And you see this big old giant buff, like horse faced freaking winged like demonic creature, and then like it has like lightning striking behind it. Wind is like, starting to kick up and stuff, like it's very dramatic. And then like it goes wee wee. Wouldn't that be so anticlimactic? Like I wouldn't even know if I'd be like, all right, I'm thinking about shitting my pants, but I really don't want to now. Now that I've heard you. That could be cool. I don't know. Maybe not though.
What if it's actually
like, you still might die.
What if it's like some really weird genetic experiment and it has so many different species that are crossed that it's just totally confused about what it's supposed to mate with, and that's actually its mating call, and it just keeps going around to everything, going wee wee wee. Like it doesn't know. It's confused. It has no idea.
And I wonder if it's male or female, because like that might depend on whether I might come to that call. If I knew if it was female, I was like, hey, well, hey man, I like anime. That influences my porn decisions throughout my life, so that might be cool.
Wow, the siren call of the Jersey Devil.
Wow, this podcast.
As long as
episode got weird.
As long as it's not like a female praying mantis where like I die after, or like a black widow or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, as long as that doesn't happen, like I can tell the story after whether I enjoyed it or not. Yeah, but we'll see. Well, right?
This sounds like something that's already happened.
You're like the Captain Kirk of this show, man. You'll give it a shot. You don't care. You're like, hey, you know what? I don't care. I'll try it out, see how it goes.
Dude,
go where no man has gone before.
I think this is Agent ETA's way of telling us that this has happened.
Oh, okay.
He has met the Jersey Devil and has firsthand experience.
Hey, am I taking a trip over to the East Coast over there? Sucked it up like a sponge. I don't know.
That's exactly how they sound in New Jersey, I'm sure. Nailed the accent 100%. All right.
I'm so good at accents.
Let's get to some more of these sightings. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them at this point, but all right. So I found one. This is on Wikipedia from a newspaper in 1887, and I just sort of liked the description of this one because it's given as like an actual account of a sighting, but it says, whenever he went near it, it would give a most unearthly yell that frightened the dogs. It whipped at every dog on the place. That thing, said the colonel, is not a bird nor an animal, but it is the Leeds devil according to the description, and it was born over in Evesham, Burlington County, 100 years ago. There's no mistake about it. I never saw the horrible critter myself. At this point, I'm like, wait. So you never saw it? What is this? Why? Why is this even here? He never even saw it himself. I never saw the horrible creature myself, but I can remember well when it was roaming around in Evesham woods 50 years ago, and when it was hunted by men and dogs, and shot at by the best marksmen there were in all of South Jersey. And again, I'm thinking, how many marksmen were there in South Jersey at that time? You know, like 10? I don't know.
There's probably some good hunters in the area. I can guarantee you that.
Couldn't have been. Maybe that's true. Everybody hunted back then, so maybe there were some good marksmen. I take that back. I just thought it seemed strange, but I guess I was wrong about that. Anyways, but could not be killed. There isn't a family in Burlington or any of the adjoining counties that does not know of the Leeds devil, and it was the bugaboo to frighten children with when I was a boy. So the thing that I found most interesting about this is that it sort of it puts in the history that this has been part of the local culture for a long time. And he talks about there how it was used as, he calls it a bugaboo, but I guess we would say a boogeyman nowadays to frighten children with. So it's just sort of a really interesting account. But at the same time, it's not just a make-believe boogeyman. He's talking about it as if it's real. So I just thought it was a really interesting little excerpt there. But there are a couple of other really interesting stories, like one from the early 19th century. I didn't get the exact date, but there was apparently a commodore named Stephen de Catur was testing cannonballs on the range, as you do, I suppose, back then. They didn't have Netflix, so what's a retired naval commander to do, or commodore to do on his free time is, I guess you go out on the range and shoot off some cannonballs. It's just what you do on, yeah. He saw a creature flying around and whatnot, and he shot a cannonball at it and hit it dead on. And even though it was a direct hit, there was no effect. Yeah, right? Yeah. And I was thinking, so a lot of reports, I don't think we gave a size, but a lot of reports say this thing is something on the order of like 3 feet or 4 feet. The biggest, absolutely largest reports are like man size. So, 5 feet or something, or 6 feet, something like that. So we're not talking about, something very large. So I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, these cannons, the way a cannon fires, like, I don't know it'd be that easy to hit something flying around. Or just think if you saw like a goat on the far side of a field, you're going to really hit that with a cannonball? I don't know, man. I don't. So maybe he shot a cannonball at, like a bird. And he was like really drunk or something, because hey, he's from the Navy. I mean, if you're involved in anything on a ship in the 1800s or even before then, they were partial to alcohol, from what I understand. And so he's probably out there on the range having a good old time, getting tossing some drinks back, shooting off the cannons. And he's like, I said Jersey Devil, I'm gonna get him. You know what I mean?
I can imagine that.
By the way, one of my favorite mixed drinks is called a gimlet. It's kind of like a Tom Collins, but with lime juice. It's gin, lime juice, and sugar, or a simple syrup. It's easy to make and delicious. People in the Navy or people on ships used to drink it to ward off scurvy. And I guess it's really hard to get sailors to drink, lime juice. So they would mix it with alcohol, because they'll drink anything if you mix it with alcohol, apparently.
What does that you say, matey? It's got alcohol in it? Well, let me put it down in me gullet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was that little story. I think one of you, I think Agent ETA mentioned that there was a bunch of animal killings in the 1840s. And
don't you put words in my mouth now.
I thought somebody mentioned that.
Yeah, no, maybe I did.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you guys mentioned that one. So I guess the one I'll talk about, because we're getting on an hour here, and I like to keep it somewhere in the ballpark of an hour if possible, so that I can edit this before Thursday. The last sighting I'll talk about is actually in 1909. There was a flap of sightings, and we had a bunch of people, tons of independent witnesses, The 1909 flap started January 16th, 1909. A guy named Thack Cozzens, that's just a wonderful name right there. Oh, I love it. Thack, ThackCozzens. I love it, man. Thack Cozzens
I don't even know what that
Woodbury.
means.
I know. It's crazy. That's crazy stuff right there. So Thack Cozzens of Woodbury saw a flying creature with red eyes. And a bunch of other people saw it that same day, which I'll skip over those, but we'll get to a guy that day, an officer, James Sackville, which is it's not as good as Thack Cozzens, but James Sackville, that's a respectable name right there. What happened to all these names? I'm sure these people had kids. I've never met anybody named Sackville or Cozzens. Where are all the descendants of these people? That's what I want to know. But so Officer James Sackville shot at the creature, but it flew away, screaming, apparently unfazed by the gunshots. And on the next day, so this was on Sunday, I think I said Sunday. On Monday, a bunch of more people saw stuff, and people in Bristol found strange hoof prints in the snow. And they would see hoof prints that would lead to the middle of a field or a road and then just kind of disappear as if whatever was leaving them vanished or perhaps flew up, take your pick. One family found hoof prints around the trash in their yard, and the trash was partially eaten. And I like that description because, we take for granted our trash services. I suppose back then, if you had trash, you just kind of tossed it in your yard. And then what happens? I don't know. You just leave it in your yard and hope the bears eat it? I have no idea. A lot of the yards in Burlington actually had these hoof prints, and some went from rooftop to rooftop, jumping from house to house, and others apparently even went up trees.
Oh, okay.
It's up the trees. Okay. So I guess the Jersey Devil doesn't obey the law of physics, doesn't have to worry about gravity. So on Tuesday, let's get to the next day on Tuesday, Mr. and Mrs. Nelson Evans of Gloucester were awakened by a strange noise. They looked out of their window and observed the Jersey Devil for 10 minutes. It was 3.5 feet tall, had a head like a dog and a face like a horse. It had a long neck and wings 2 feet long. Its back legs looked like those of a crane, and it had hooves. It walked on its back legs, and its front legs were short and had paws. He opened the window. This is my favorite part of this. Oh man, I love this stuff. He opened the window and said, "Shoo."
Shoo, you devil creature now. You shoo. You get.
The creature looked at him and flew away. Okay.
Okay then.
It wasn't hurting nothing. It was just looking for scraps or whatever. Just, maybe it wanted a friend. It was lonely. It's just
loitering around a little bit.
It's a poor, ugly little thing. Doesn't have any friends. It just wanted a friend, man. What if that is what the Jersey Devil is, just trying to find a friend? Like he's this ugly, decrepit piece of shit looking demon creature, but he's not trying to. The only way he can communicate with people is hissing at them and yelling at them and stuff, and but that's his way of saying, "What's up, bro?" Hey, how you doing? Yeah.
But he just doesn't realize these people think oh God, I'm gonna get ripped to shreds. Maybe it's one of those things where when some people interact with others, like a very large individual, they don't know their strength. You know what I mean? Maybe he just as far as his presence, he doesn't know his strength. Yeah. He's just trying to find friends. He's just trying to find somebody to work out with, on leg day or something, because it sounds like he does actually put a quite a bit into leg day. His leg, so, it's almost like the Mothman's ass. It's impressive in that way,
It depends. It depends on the description. Some of them said he had very small legs. Some of them he had very big legs. But yeah, actually, we'll get to that in a bit. But this creature may have some similarities with the Mothman. But on to the flap of 1909. On the 19th and 20th, there were even more sightings. For example, on the 20th, it was seen by the Black Hawk Social Club and a trolley full of people in Clementon. Witness descriptions matched what previous witnesses had seen. And by this time, by the 20th, it had become a full-blown panic. Trolley drivers started arming themselves. People sought refuge in churches. Farmers in the Delaware Valley found that their chickens were dead with no apparent wounds. And people stopped going to work and they shuttered themselves up in their houses. People were really kind of freaked out about this thing. On that night of the 20th, Mrs. Sobrinsky in Camden heard a noise in her backyard. She went out to look and found that the Jersey Devil had her dog in its grasp. She did what any good dog owner would do and beat the devil with her broom.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You let go of my dog, you devil, you get.
That's my dog, you motherfucker.
And so it dropped the dog and flew off into the night.
What a hero. She saved her doggy.
As you do when a woman is beating you with a broom and you're a flying cryptid.
Dude, that reminds me actually of a video I watched recently. I think it's been around for a little bit, but there was this older lady. She wasn't very old. I think she maybe was in like her mid-50s or something like that. And she had like 3 or 4 dogs outside of her house, and she had like a security camera like recording the whole damn thing. A bear walked up, like I think she was in Oregon or Washington, something like that. And a bear walked up on the top of the wall. Like the dogs started barking at it and like yiping at it and stuff like that. Like, oh, you're in my territory, right? And like she heard it, ran outside, and straight up like socked the fucking bear in the face.
Nice.
Like, get out of here! Get away from my dog! Like, get away from my dogs! She just reacted like that's the most like Xena warrior princess like thing I've ever seen. Like this woman was all about it, dude. Like she was just like, oh, that's a bear. Let me sock it in the face. Boom! Like get away from my dogs, fool. I was like, damn, that holy crap!
That's
I was
impressive.
Very impressed.
Yeah.
Like she didn't even think about it. Like she just did it. Like the bear was like, oh shit, I'm gonna get away then. Like all right, I'm out.
That is
like
dang. That's some bravery right there.
It's a pretty cool video, but like obviously, yeah, could she have gotten mauled by that bear? Yeah, obviously, but luckily for her, she didn't. Neither like none of her dogs did either. But they were like jumping up, like trying to bite the bear too, though. Like those dogs are just like sometimes dogs are just going to react, right? They're just trying to protect their surroundings. Like they see this thing that's a threat, right? And they're just going to try to protect.
Especially their home.
They don't think that they're like, yeah, especially their home, but they're like 1/10 the size of this creature, but they still attack, like some dogs just like they're just going to, like they're going to react. But yeah, luckily it worked out well for this woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the most one of those like badass moments I've seen, like somebody protecting their homestead from a wild creature or something, Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt there, but like, yeah, that was just, it reminded me of that video, and that's such a badass video. If anybody hasn't seen it, I think you just need to, you could probably type in a couple keywords there on YouTube, and you probably find it real quick.
Woman punches bear, maybe,
or something, or defends dogs.
Yeah,
probably woman punches bear, woman defends bear, dogs from bear, or something like that. And I like it'll be one of the first videos you pull up. I guarantee you.
Yeah,
it's like on the side yard, next to her house. But
she probably saved her dogs too, because that bear would have eaten those dogs. But all right, let's get back to the show. So that was like the highlights of the 1909 flap. But there's a lot more to it. But I didn't want to go too much in depth. That's just sort of like the short version. Next up, so more modern sightings. I found a couple of very modern sightings. For example, a people.com article by Alex Heigl titled "Another October, Another New Jersey Devil Sighting." And it's sort of interesting because the article has a photo which definitely does not look like it's been photoshopped. It kind of looks like a goat with wings or something, like just like a kind of like a blurry goat with wings. And the above the picture, it has a quote that says, "I swear it's not photoshopped or a staged thing," which, it's kind of like if you go to a car dealership and the car dealership is named the Honest Car Dealership, you probably should just leave, go buy your car somewhere else. You know what I mean? So the guy who took the photo for this particular article was Dave Black of, I love the name of this town, of Little Egg Harbor Township. Little Egg Harbor.
That sounds very, very quaint.
I don't know if I'd want to live there, but I would definitely want to visit, It's such a cool name.
Hey, that might be an awesome place. Like I prefer like it sounds to me like a small town. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I very much prefer small towns over big towns, or cities,
so
like that.
he was out driving past the golf course in Galloway on Route 9, and he saw what appeared to be a llama. It spread out its wings and flew off over the golf course. and he took the picture of it, and you can find this picture under the article. Just search for the article, and I'm sure you'll find it. So that's his story, and that's it. No attacks, no nothing. That's just his story, very short. I found on foxnews.com from January 20th, 2021 by Yale Hallen. Man claims to have been attacked by legendary Jersey Devil. There was a hand coming through the window is the name of the title. And in case I said the name of the author wrong, it's Yael, last name Halon, in case you guys want to find this one for yourself. These are both like pretty short articles. Anyways, so I guess this was also covered on an episode of Monsters Across America, which is a show that I have not seen, but it sounds like it'd be pretty fun to watch. So maybe I'll look it up at some point. But anyways, a guy named Michael Orff when he was a high school student at South Jersey High, he was driving down an unpaved road in the Pine Barrens with a date named Violet. And I'm hoping that, for modesty's sake, they've changed the names of these people here because
Violet sounds like a character that might have been paid money to be along on this trip.
Yeah, there's any number of interpretations, and we'll just leave that to the imaginations of the viewers or the listeners. He sensed that, I guess the car was parked, and he sensed that there was something out there, so he rolled down the window. Now, this is where I start to my spidey senses start to tingle, because if I sense there's something out there, I don't roll down the window. I just leave, if I would hypothetically parked in the middle of the woods somewhere and I sense something out there. But anyways, they heard a rustling outside and something put its hand through the open window. The hand was large and had sharp claws. He rolled up the window, trapping the creature's arm. Blood spurted from the creature's arm all over the car's occupants and got all over their faces and stuff.
What kind of window was this?
I know, right?
Was it electric or a manual crank?
I don't know.
If it was electric, that must have been a pretty damn powerful motor. Like, right?
Yeah, who knows? So he rolled up the window. So Violet started screaming because, she had creature blood all over her face. And the creature pulled its arm out of the window, jumped on the hood of the car just as he started to drive off, and it shattered the windshield by punching it or whatever. And then he tumbled off the car as he drove away, and they were able to escape this monstrous creature. Now, it's a fun story, but to me, it reads like something out of like a B movie script or something. You know what I mean? Like, how hard
it sounds like something out of like Suburban Sasquatch.
Yeah. You know how hard you have to roll up a window to make somebody's arm bleed or some creature's arm bleed,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, dude. And they just said they saw an arm. They didn't see a whole Jersey Devil. I mean, that was probably just like a hobo who hadn't trimmed his nails in a long time or something, because he couldn't afford a nail clipper. I mean, he's just probably asking for like, can I have a hamburger or something? And then they're like, Jersey Devil. And they just chop off his arm. That's not cool.
He could have had some very, like some long sleeves on, very heavily stained, from whatever that person has been through, and maybe they, reached in with their right hand there, which is the hand that they probably wipe with without any paper or nothing like that, so makes their arm sleeves even more that discolored. So, you might think that, it's a monster, right? But like, not the Jersey Devil. I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's a little far-fetched. But that would be like, it's still, like the story in itself would still be kind of like I don't know. It'd definitely be a strenuous event to go through, right?
Yeah. Even if, maybe it was just somebody trying to rob them or something, and they just freaked out, and who knows. But there's actually a lot of modern sightings that you can look up. Some of them are more believable than others, but there's still a ton of them. So people are still seeing this thing, whatever it is. And there are also photographs online, and they look totally legit, most of them. Well, there was one that I saw that actually did look like an actual genuine photograph. And I found this in an article on businessinsider.com of all places, which is a strange place to see an article about a cryptid, but there it was. And it shows this really weird looking creature on a fence. And you can see it right there. It looks like this really weird creature. It didn't have any wings or anything, but it definitely looked like, like nothing I could recognize. I was like, that doesn't look like a normal thing. But it turns out it was identified as a picture of a fox squirrel that, for whatever reason, didn't have any hair. So they normally have hair, but this guy maybe had mange, maybe he had some sort of birth defect and he just born without hair. But for whatever reason, it didn't have any hair, and it looked really weird. It's just a squirrel without hair.
It could have been a combination of things. Also, it doesn't always have to be one thing.
Squirrels are tiny.
This in the picture, this squirrel looked fairly large. I mean, I don't mean like large, but it looked bigger than your average squirrel.
Yeah, but not 3 feet.
Maybe not 3 feet, but if you saw this thing for a split second and it surprised you, then, you might interpret this as being something abnormal because it did not look normal. You might freak out if you saw this thing.
You know what doesn't look normal?
What?
Baby birds.
That is also true.
Very creepy. I was working at this restaurant and they sent me out to the parking lot to sweep up. And I was young. I was like 15 at the time. So I'm going around and there's, napkins and paper cups and whatever. And I come across this baby bird and it is not moving. It is not alive. It's like 120 degrees out or something.
Aw, poor bird.
And I didn't know what to do. I'm like, do I clean it up? Do I touch it? I wasn't sure what to do. So I just swept it inside my little, container there. And then I threw it away and I felt so guilty.
That's a sad story.
It is a sad story. They're
when
creepy,
it's that hot
though.
outside, it's like it's not like you can save it once. I mean, it seems like that bird was already dead.
Yeah.
Oh, but it looks so weird.
They do look pretty weird sometimes. Yeah. Them baby birds. All right. So those, like I said, there's a ton of different sightings, but I didn't want to, they're very similar, a lot of similarities. I didn't want to go too much into all of them. I wanted to talk, more broad look. But for me, when you have so many, especially with the 1909 sightings, you have physical evidence that's, multiple independent witnesses reporting that they're all seeing tracks in different towns and everything. And it was like a genuine panic. And it's hard for me to believe that it was all caused by nothing. Then again, the description of the creature is just so outlandish. It's hard to imagine how such a creature would come about through natural evolutionary means, if it was some sort of, regular. And keep in mind that cryptids there are a handful of cryptids that did turn out to be real. For example, I read that the panda bear in China was at one point considered by Westerners to be a cryptid because, people would go there and report, oh, we saw this creature. It totally looks like a big, giant, fluffy teddy bear.
They do, too.
They do. They look so cute and fluffy. And then people...
At one point,
home,
gorillas...
Yeah.
Gorillas also had that status.
People at home would be like,
Europeans.
You have to be making this up. Teddy bears are not real. They're just teddy bears. They're not living and eating bamboo or whatever in China. Come on. We don't believe you, but it turned out to be real. So there have been a handful of creatures throughout the years that did turn out to be real that were at one point considered what you nowadays might call a cryptid. So that makes this story really interesting, particularly the 1909 flap, but also because there was physical evidence, I wonder if a group of people, like maybe a liars club or something, hoaxed that. I don't think one person could do it, but what if you had several people who made some kind of weird looking footprint and went around to all these different towns in the middle of the night and leaving these footprints everywhere as sort of like a joke or a gag, or even to try to get people to come to their penny or dime museum or whatever it was.
Something kind of like a crop circle.
Yeah. But we'll get to the crop circles, man. We got to do a whole episode on those.
Oh,
yes, we do.
Yes, that is a good topic right there. But
we haven't done that yet.
With all the historical accounts that seem genuine, it's hard to believe that this was nothing, that it was all just made up, or it was explainable completely by mass hysteria. It's just a really, really fun and interesting case. But let's get into some of the possible explanations. So one theory I read suggested that it could be a tulpa. Now, I don't know if you guys know what a tulpa is. You guys ever heard of that?
No.
I do not.
Okay, so a tulpa, which we could do, I don't know if we could do a whole episode on it, but it's sort of like a cryptid, but it's sort of like an imaginary friend that people create that they sort of manifest this tulpa that could be literally anything you want.
Oh.
So, well, I'm going to probably about to edit out whatever ETA is about to say, but
Go for it, ETA.
let's say I wanted to manifest a Bigfoot right now. Now, I haven't done a ton of reading on them, so I don't know if I manifest a Bigfoot.
Did you see that? Wait, did you see that? How that happened? He like shut me down before I was even able to even get anything off.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead. Good
ETA.
show.
Go ahead.
Well met, sir.
Go ahead. Go ahead. What would your tulpa be?
Saying,
what would your tulpa? No, I was going to explain what they were before you said what yours would be because you said you didn't know what they were. So let's say hypothetically, if I manifested a tulpa in this room, let's say I wanted it to be a Bigfoot, it would be a Bigfoot. So for me, I guess what some people will actually see a tulpa there, they'll actually see the Bigfoot, but I don't know if other people can see the manifestation or if it's just something that you see that you manifest for yourself.
Mine would be Majin Buu from Dragon Ball Z.
All right. I don't know who that is, but
Majin Buu.
I'm sure some people do.
Best villain ever.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one anime I never got around to watching that somehow I didn't watch, but I want to watch it eventually. I saw Naruto.
It takes a lot of patience.
I saw Naruto and I heard they're very similar in a lot of ways.
It takes a lot of patience. A lot of things are very drawn out.
Yeah. Well, when I did
very drawn out.
When I did watch Naruto, the only way I got through it was by using a filler guide to skipping, I don't know, probably at least half the episodes where nothing happens. Otherwise, there's no way I could have watched it all. But all right, so that's one explanation is the tulpa that, you know, somebody, I think I saw that on Above Top Secret. Somebody made a thread suggesting that could be it. But one more likely scenario would be that it could be some kind of giant bat, because a lot of people describe bat wings. So if they saw a giant bat, and the largest giant bat has a wingspan of up to 5.6 feet. 5.6 feet, guys.
Really?
If you saw a bat with a wingspan that big,
it's a big freaking bat,
you might just crap yourself and think that you saw the Jersey Devil, because you wouldn't know what that thing was. And so there are no bats that big in New Jersey's, where, as far as I'm aware of. They might have some little fruit bats, those little tiny guys that are like flying mice.
That's the only bat I've ever seen, is the little fruit bats.
I've actually seen them around here sometimes.
Yeah.
So I imagine they have stuff like that in New Jersey. People probably seen them on occasion. But if you saw a giant bat with like a 5.6 foot wingspan, you would not interpret that as being a bat, especially if you saw it like at nighttime. Even if you saw it landed in the field at the daytime, you know, heck, why not? You would see that thing and it would be way too big to be a bat. So you would just think, you know, it must be something else. Maybe it's the Jersey Devil. And you might say, well, there are no bats that big in New Jersey, but what if there was somebody had one as like an exotic pet, or maybe it escaped from a zoo? You know, there are possible ways that a bat that big could have ended up in New Jersey. Maybe it hitched a ride on a boat from.
It could have escaped from like an experimental government site or something.
Yeah, there's any number of explanations, which, although they seem unlikely, they're still not completely impossible. So therefore, in my opinion, they're worth consideration, even though they're very unlikely. There was an abandoned zoo in the area called Jungle Habitat that was apparently just abandoned, and they let some of their animals loose at some point. And I don't know exactly what year that was, but that could account for maybe some of the sightings, maybe some of the more modern sightings. One explanation I saw said that it could be a surviving pterodactyl. Like, all right, hey, why not? Why not? You know,
all right,
sure. And
another cool story, bro.
Yeah, could also have been the Loch Ness monster. You know, could have been.
Oh, sure.
Another one that was brought up as a possible explanation for the Jersey Devil is none other than the sandhill crane. And I think I mentioned earlier that the Jersey Devil may have something in common with the Mothman. And well, if they're both explained by the sandhill crane, then the Mothman and the Jersey Devil are one and the same. One of the explanations for that is that a lot of the sightings said that the creature had red eyes. The Jersey Devil had red eyes, like red glowing eyes, which could just mean they saw it at nighttime and their eyes, whatever it was, could have been a squirrel reflecting light. Their eyes could maybe look red, but I don't think I've ever seen anything reflecting red. But have you ever seen like something, go on a walk at night and you see some reflecting, like even if it's just a neighborhood cat, just for a split second, you see those eyes reflecting at you back out of the bushes or something. That's some scary stuff right there. The sandhill crane has like a red marking on its head, and that's why they say that people interpret that as red eyes glowing at them, and that's why they say it's a sandhill crane. But I'm like, well,
maybe those feathers have some kind of reflective properties or something.
Yeah, in the dark, would it like reflect like eyes? I don't know if that really looks like red eyes. Who knows? I mean, if you see something under strange conditions and your mind flips out and you panic, I guess maybe anything's possible. Who knows? All right. So another explanation that I found was that it was actually a deformed child that Mrs. Leeds kept locked away in the house. Like it had massive birth defects or something. And out of embarrassment, she hid it away from the rest of the neighborhood. And at some point, this child escaped or something, maybe foraging for food because they didn't feed it. I don't know. This one doesn't have that much legs, in my opinion, but who knows? Maybe a massively deformed child escaped and terrorized the neighborhood for a bit, and that could be the origin. I don't know. And then the last one that I found that I wanted to talk about was something that we sort of mentioned earlier, but some people consider it to be the very essence of evil and a harbinger of war. And they point to evidence of, a spike of sightings or specific sightings that seem to happen just before wartime. But a skeptic might say that, well, there's so many sightings throughout the years that you could just choose ones that just so happen to be before wars. And they cite certain wars like the Revolution, World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, or just pick your war. And there's been sightings of the Jersey Devil just before that war. But I mean, there's always sightings of the Jersey Devil, so I'm not sure that one makes sense specifically. But given the supernatural aspect of some of these sightings, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for this to be some sort of, I don't know, maybe not like an actual normal creature that we haven't discovered, but some sort of supernatural creature of some kind, especially the accounts where, I mean, there's a lot of accounts where people either shot it or hit it with some weapon and it didn't seem to affect it at all, which kind of makes you wonder, if you're can you really hallucinate something like that? I don't know. It's really strange. And it just kind of makes me wonder, what did these people actually see? So those are all like sort of the possible explanations that I sort of came up with. Did you folks have any possible explanations, agents?
Aliens.
Aliens.
You forgot aliens.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I did not consider the aliens. We'll get to, somebody actually requested, it's related to the Mothman, but cryptid, or sometimes it's considered a cryptid, sometimes an alien called Indrid Cold. I think we talked about it a little bit, but maybe that'd be fun. I don't know if there's enough there to do a whole episode, but we might do
a mind boggle.
Or maybe do an episode where we cover a couple of different things. But it's definitely an interesting one I want to do. But Agent Ether, any final opinions or thoughts?
I don't know. When I think about the origin story and the fact that, they had the Leeds family had the dragon basically on their shield, and you discussed, kind of the history between them and the political environment and that sort of thing, it just makes me feel a little skeptical.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, people are definitely seeing something, so that's why it kind of makes me think maybe they're seeing, some sort of exotic animal that's not indigenous to the area.
Yeah.
Or who knows? I mean, there's any number of possible explanations, but it's hard to believe that everybody's seeing nothing. Like all these reports throughout the years for 250 or 300 years, I don't believe that they're all just nothing, I think that they're all they're all due to something. What that something is,
we don't know.
All right, before we wrap it up, let's give a shout out to the live audience who is some people came and went, so I don't remember who all was here throughout the show because I wasn't paying that close of attention. But we got Weird Owl, whose avatar, by the way, is one of I don't know about my favorite show, but it's a show that I greatly enjoyed called Adventure Time. I'll just say my favorite episode, a quote from that episode is, "If you say my name 3 times, I'll do anything." That's Jake the dog said that. We got Grayscaling of anime fame. We got good old Yak, Beowulf, Cringe Lord, and Donut Slayer. Slay them donuts. I wonder if Donut Slayer doesn't mean that they eat a lot of donuts, but it's sort of like a euphemism for something else. Now I'm afraid to ask. But all right, guys, thanks for sticking around on the live show. We really appreciate you guys. And I wanted to do at some point, I wanted to like bring people up on the stage, like at the end of the show, and just, for a quick comments and stuff. We're going to skip that this time because our show has gone quite long. We're at an hour 46 right now, which I'll probably edit that down maybe to an hour 30, but it's still quite long. So we'll skip that this time around. But next time, if you have any device with like a microphone, like a cell phone or a computer or something, I think on the audience, you can raise your hand and then I can click on you to bring you onto the stage. And then you guys could, say hello, or, have a comment about what we talked about on the episode, or a question or whatever, it's whatever you want to talk about. Maybe bring one or two people up at the end of an episode if they want to come up. It's something I definitely want to try. Maybe we'll aim for that next time. But for this time, thanks for listening.
Keep it strange.